curse of the second seat is over. P3 in the standings, 281 points, could have been teams champions. They've got a vice champion in Theo Pourchaire. They've got potentially a Formula 2 title contender in Frederik Vesti leaving the team, going to Prema, but eventually came good around the middle of the season, comes on the podcast, turns his season around, just saying. Josh, pretty good for ART.
Depends on how you look at it. It's good that they don't have that second seat curse anymore, I guess you could say, because Vesti was showing his worth, even if it wasn't quite up to where Theo was. But, I can't really undermine what Vesti did this year. It was some good performances, a little bit under the radar in some ways. I'm not big on the hype on him. I'm not someone that looks at this guy as if he's the future star in F1. Not even the most excited person, not even the most excited I am for a driver in that academy, so to speak. But no, can't score the season too much. I think he just did about what you might have expected him, probably a little bit less. But yeah, I'm kind of a bit lukewarm on him. As for Pourchaire, he came in with the legend of John Henry's hammer. I think a lot of us thought he was going to win. And after that first season, I was just thinking, you see, I know what I'm talking about. We know what we're talking about. He's going to go up to win. It's going to be a boring last few rounds, but, still, the right person is winning this championship. Fell down like a blimmin' brick. I'm not going to hinge at all on reliability, but some of the reliability this year was just a joke. I remember I was at Spa, and I was just halfway around the track trying to walk around to the bus stop during the F2 race. Watched start at Blanchimont, then walked away to the bus stop, and halfway around the track, I just hear over the intercom, Theo Pourchaire had an engine failure. It's like, really? Damn, that's the first time that happened this year. You think about the points that he lost. Would it have been enough to eclipse Drugovich in the championship?
101 points in the end.
That's a lot of points, and you're hinging all of his retirements on that, and you're betting that all of the retirements were from winning positions, which they were not. So that's a big leap to say that would have been it. Well, what it did do was that it robbed him of some chances to get up there. And you got to remember, by the halfway point of the season by Hungary, he was still in with a shot. So it was disappointing as all hell in that regard. It wasn't a 10 out of 10 season, put it that way.
Fair to call it that. Tyler, Pourchaire vice champion, Vesti ends up in P9. Your thoughts?
I'll go with Vesti first because I think Pourchaire is the more difficult one. I think I'm in the camp of people that actually rate Vesti. I don't think the reason why he's rated by some is because of his Mercedes link, although obviously that will help. They're the most mysterious of all of the academies, not only because of Mercedes history in F1, but also because of the fact that they don't have that many people, or certainly didn't a couple of years ago. As Josh mentioned, he's not the most hyped of their academy members, but he is responsible for a lot of work in regards to sim stuff with Mercedes. So he's involved there. It's not like he's just tagged along. He genuinely is in their system. Also, he had such an amazing time with Prema in Freca, and then had a strong first rookie year in F3. I think that was what has given him a bit of a legacy at the moment. I think it was definitely a good year for him from where it started. When it was 3 rounds in, I genuinely thought that he was going to be one of the worst drivers of the season because of how far he was off compared to Pourchaire. But overnight, it seemed to switch. And then by sort of halfway, 2/3, 3/4 of the season, there were parts where Vesti was actually out-qualifying Pourchaire by a decent margin, and converting over him and scoring more points than them in rounds that obviously Pourchaire needed because of the championship. He wanted to keep himself in there. So I think Vesti's had a good year. I'm going to give him a B, I think. I'm going to give Vesti a B. I think it was pretty much on par with what I wanted from him.
Okay, so we've got Pourchaire to come, but B, let's click on the scoring here. Josh, are we thinking B is fair?
B average for Vesti, B plus for Pourchaire.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. But Tyler, then your thoughts on Mr. Vice Champion Pourchaire?
I think Pourchaire, a driver who is still 19 years old. If it wasn't for Fred Vasseur possibly jumping ship to Ferrari and rumours, when we had Theo on the podcast, the other week, and we asked him about does that worry him, and he said yes, pretty openly. That he knows that his career is on the line pretty much every single month, regardless of the fact that he's only 19. He's very aware of the situation that he's in, that he's got all this talent but still needs a route, and his route might not be one of the most open compared to some of the guys in F2. This year, I think it has actually hurt him a bit. The legacy he had at the beginning of the year was the youngest pole sitter in F1 history at Monaco and the youngest feature race. F2, and the youngest feature race winner in F2 history at Monaco. He came into this year expected to be one of the quickest drivers in qualifying. Sort of the way that Doohan's season was exactly how Pourchaire's season should have been in terms of the qualifying. It was really, really not that case. And that was what hurt him. Drugovich consistently, even if he was sort of P10 with a couple of minutes to go, Drugovich would get back up to like P3, P4. Pourchaire always seemed to struggle in the pressure. I'm sure having the engine failures really hampers you. I'm going to say A- on the basis that, yes, he's had a bad season, but at the end of the day, P2 in the championship is still a good sign for him. He's made a bit more progress, maybe not as much as I wanted him to, but I think that he's P2 in the championship. And regardless of the rest of the grid maybe not being as great as it could have been in other years, him maybe finishing a bit further down, you can only do what's in front of you. So in that regard, I think I'd say A-.
Josh, happy to go up to an A- for Theo?
I wouldn't argue against it.
I'd happily come down to B+ to be fair. I think it's one of those ones where some people say that he's actually had a good season because of the engine stuff. I think that's over the top, but he hasn't had a bad season as well. So it's just how you look at it.
I like Theo a lot. I think vice champion, it's coming in with what we said about where do you expect him to be, and I think a lot of people I think all three of us were saying Theo's going to be champion by the end of the year, so we're all kind of disappointed by that. But if we're actually looking at it fairly nothing key, this guy's vice champion. Tyler,
just going to say, also important to mention next year for him. He said that he was going to go to Super Formula. Oh no, but sorry, not Super Formula. But he said he was going to not be in F2 next year, which obviously linked him to Super Formula and the test that he supposedly had. I asked him about that. He said that it's not happening. We asked him about it on the podcast. He said that it was a rumor that someone had made up. Obviously, drivers not always 100% reliable, but it looks like F2 is where he's going to be with ART again and Victor Martins as his teammate, F3 champion. So that's going to be an interesting team, all French. And you'd expect Pourchaire to be the favourite because of the situation he's in now.
I'm going to say with this one, and speaking of this year, A-. I'm happy with A-. You guys happy with A-. So A- there.